Bob Iger makes 400 times what his lowest worker is. And I think that's a shame, Bob.
I don't know. Does anyone want me to do it again?
I'm now at a juncture where I can say no. I don't want to make another...
Black Widow star Scarlett Johansson is now suing Disney.
Asked me to do a season 2, and they offered me half the money. I'm like, wow, it's going to take me twice the amount of work for half the amount of money.
Natalie AI thing seems utterly preposterous and ridiculous, and even for an MCU show, I'm finding it to be a little bit of a bridge too far to go. The heist crew, all lame. Every single one of them, all lame.
Marvel Studios was once untouchable, the crown jewel of Hollywood blockbusters. But today, their empire isn't just wobbling, it's cracking wide open. And it all comes down to one show, one project that was supposed to launch the future, but instead set off the biggest collapse in Marvel history. A domino effect that's now driving out the Avengers cast, rattling Disney's investors, and leaving fans asking if the MCU is already finished.
Or is another skippable series. It's always about you, right? It's always about the audience. It's amazing. It doesn't matter if it's the 2024 election or whether it's a Disney streaming product. It's always about like how evil is the actual voters? How evil are the audience?
The craziest part? Marvel saw it coming. They knew the risks, and they still let it happen. Ironheart was pitched as the next big legacy story. A young genius picking up where Tony Stark left off. On paper, it sounded unstoppable, but the rollout? It was everything fans hate about modern Hollywood. Forced, corporate, hollow. The trailers felt like ads, the interviews felt strained, and the show itself landed with a thud. Instead of uniting fans, it exposed exactly what people were tired of.
I would say to those people, just like with Buzz, like, you know, refurbish your idea of tradition. You know, understand that it's to infinity and beyond. It's time to move forward. It's time to accept and look and you know, enjoy all the faces that have always been there. You know what I mean? They always been a part of the picture. You just try to like paint them out. So that's also what this is about. It's about this is what it looks like. This is what it's always been. And yeah, to infinity and
flashy visuals and shallow storytelling. The backlash wasn't just odd line noise. It seeped into the cast. Dominique Thorne, the actress at the center, did her best, but even she admitted in press interviews that the weight was heavy. Marvel knew Ironheart was divisive before it even launched, but they doubled down, thinking they could weather the storm. They were wrong, because this wasn't just about one show. It was the spark that ignited a much bigger fire.
When that happens, there's always going to be people who are afraid and unaware and trying to hold on to what was before. But those people die off like dinosaurs. And so, you know, I think the goal is to pay them no mind, march forward, and embrace the growth that makes us human.
For years, Jeremy Renner was Marvel's safe bet. He wasn't the flashiest Avenger, but he was reliable. Even after nearly losing his life in a snowplow accident, he made it clear, if the studio wanted him back, he'd suit up as Hawkeye. That kind of loyalty is rare in Hollywood. And Marvel's response? They offered him half the paycheck he'd earned.
I had to defend myself. I didn't ask for any more money, mind you, right? It just paid me.
While demanding even more work. Renner didn't go nuclear. He didn't trash the studio. He just quietly walked away. But that quiet exit spoke volumes. If a near-death survivor still willing to fight for the role gets insulted like that, what does that say about how Marvel values its stars? Fans noticed. The cast noticed. And suddenly, the first crack in the Avengers lineup wasn't hypothetical. It was very real. Brie Larson's relationship with Marvel has always been complicated. From the moment she was cast as Captain Marvel, she carried the weight of being the franchise's first female lead.
Do they go into every decision of, you know, if I'm working, where I'm working, when I'm working? They've taught me, I mean, I didn't know that I could feel so much, and my job has a lot to do with emotion, and they've opened up the world to me.
She endured online harassment, fanboy hate campaigns, and constant scrutiny, all while Marvel marketed her as the face of representation, then disappeared when the blowback came. She wasn't supported. She was left to burn alone. So when asked in interviews if she'd return, her hesitant, "Does anyone even want me to?" wasn't just modesty. It was exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that comes from realizing the studio you fought for isn't fighting for you.
How long will you play Captain Marvel for?
I don't know. Does anyone want me to do it again?
Don't be so modest.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
Her fatigue became symbolic of the larger problem. Marvel once built its empire on protecting its stars. Now, those stars feel abandoned. Scarlett Johansson's exit was the loudest sign that something was deeply wrong behind the curtain. After carrying Black Widow for a decade, she sued Disney when they broke her contract by pushing the movie onto streaming.
Black Widow star Scarlett Johansson is now suing Disney over the release of the hit Avengers spinoff on Disney+. She says releasing the film on the streaming service was a breach of her contract, allegedly saving Disney and Marvel from paying her what the company would have owed her from a sole box office release.
Lawsuit filed Thursday says, with the bulk of Ms. Johansson's compensation being tied to box office receipts, Disney knew that the cannibalization of such receipts by Disney Plus would save Marvel, and by extension Disney, very large amounts of money that it would otherwise owe Ms. Johansson, adding her team's attempts to reach an understanding were ignored.
She won, and in winning, she revealed the truth. Marvel wasn't above undercutting even its biggest names if it meant a few more dollars. Scarlett didn't need to scream about it. Her quiet mic drop in interviews, saying she was glad no one else would deal with what she had to, was enough. The cast paid attention, because if ScarJo, one of Marvel's most bankable stars, could be sabotaged, what protection did anyone else have? Her victory in court didn't restore faith. It shattered it. After Scarlett, the silence began spreading. Chris Hemsworth, once the most vocal Marvel hype man, suddenly admitted Thor: Love and Thunder went too silly and stopped promising sequels. Mark Ruffalo grew vague about his Hulk future. Elizabeth Olsen flat out said she was done for now. Simu Liu, who tweeted Marvel propaganda nonstop after Shang-Chi went cold. And then came the biggest shift. Robert Downey Jr., the man who once defended Marvel behind the scenes, stopped defending them at all.
Where Downey Jr. pointed out to both Marvel and Disney that this could not only ruin his reputation, but also cost him fans, and he's against making those statements. However, both Bob and Kevin informed him that taking part in these types of statements and the press tour for Ironheart is built into his very expensive contract for the future of the MCU, mostly related to the return in Avengers Doomsday. RDJ is already challenging both Bob Iger and Kevin Feige that he will only make statements defending Ironheart and Riri Williams if it avoids arguments about DEI.
When the guy who built the MCU checks out, it's no longer just about scheduling or contracts. It's a brand collapse. Marvel wasn't just losing actors. They were losing their biggest defenders. The breaking point happened off camera. A secret Zoom call among several Avengers actors turned into a venting session. Pay cuts, broken promises, relentless workloads. Everyone had a story. And then Ironheart came up. Robert Downey Jr. discovered Marvel had recycled an old promo clip of him endorsing the series without his consent. He hadn't actively supported the show at all. To him, it wasn't just shady, it was betrayal. That's when he reportedly stopped answering Kevin Feige's calls. Marvel's foundation wasn't talent contracts or billion-dollar budgets, it was trust. And once RDJ's trust was gone, the entire system began to crumble. Weren't just disappointed, they were exhausted. The Disney Plus shows, once marketed as essential to understanding the future of the MCU, started to feel like empty promises. Loki hinted at the multiverse unraveling, but the storyline went nowhere for years. WandaVision teased Mephisto, teased House of M, teased a seismic shift in the universe, only for it to end with nothing. Falcon and the Winter Soldier positioned itself as a political thriller, but collapsed into another CGI finale with no real consequences. Viewers kept waiting for the puzzle pieces to connect, but instead of the masterpiece, they got a box of mismatched parts. By the time Ironheart came along, patience was gone. Instead of excitement, the series became shorthand for everything wrong with Marvel.
Going out there from the media that you are just a racist if you don't like Ironheart. The reason it's getting this backlash, the reason it's getting bad reviews, the reason that fans don't like what they see, it's just because all the damn racists out there, Jay. It's MAGA trolls, it's racists, it's blah, blah, blah. Well, we finally have our first hint of what this show is performing like when it comes to the numbers. Spoiler alert, kind of exactly what we expect. Ironheart ratings in the gutter.
Bloated budgets, soulless scripts, shallow characters, and the studio more interested in quantity than quality. And the problems weren't limited to what fans saw on screen. Behind the curtain, Marvel's VFX teams began speaking out, describing impossible deadlines, overnight render orders, and executives demanding fully finished CGI before scripts were even locked. That chaos bled into the final product. Scenes that looked unfinished, movies patched together mid-production, and leaks revealing entire third acts rewritten during reshoots. Industry insiders whispered that Marvel's pipeline had become unsustainable, and investors noticed. Disney's quarterly reports showed a brutal trend. Fans tuned in for premieres but didn't stick around. Viewership plummeted episode by episode. The same audiences who once dissected every frame of a trailer were now disengaging before finales even aired. Investors started asking the one question Marvel couldn't afford to answer honestly. If fans don't care anymore, then what's left of the brand? With panic spreading, Marvel's executives decided to roll the dice on the most desperate move in their history. Bring back the original Avengers, all 6. Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Thor, Hulk, Hawkeye, dead or alive, it didn't matter. They had the multiverse loophole, and on paper, it sounded like a guaranteed billion-dollar hit. Nostalgia sells, right? But the cast wasn't playing ball. Robert Downey Jr. was still fuming after Marvel recycled his old footage to falsely endorse Ironheart. To him, it wasn't just about money, it was about respect. Chris Evans hinted he might cameo, but he wasn't about to sign a multi-picture deal just to keep Marvel afloat. Scarlett Johansson wanted more than money. She wanted apologies, creative control, and the assurance that her lawsuit wasn't just swept under the rug. Jeremy Renner, after surviving a near-fatal accident and being lowballed on pay, demanded real respect or nothing at all. Chris Hemsworth, once Marvel's golden boy, openly questioned whether the MCU even had a direction left after Love and Thunder flopped critically. And Mark Ruffalo? He flat-out refused to play babysitter in a franchise that was already falling apart. Suddenly, the very cast that once moved heaven and earth to promote Marvel films weren't budging an inch. And that's when the deeper problem hit executives. Even if the reunion happened, who were they supposed to pass the torch to? Phase 4 and 5 had failed to establish the next generation. Shang-Chi's sequel wasn't moving forward. The Eternals vanished without explanation. Ironheart, Miss Marvel, and She-Hulk had no momentum. Even Doctor Strange, once a major player, had been sidelined by messy rewrites. So the Avengers reunion wasn't just desperate, it was directionless. Marvel wasn't reviving heroes for the story. They were reviving them because they had no idea who the next hero should even be. And audiences can smell desperation from a mile away. Backed into a corner, Marvel and Disney made one final gamble: lean entirely on Deadpool and Wolverine. Unlike Ironheart, unlike the half-baked Disney Plus spin-offs, this was a project that actually had fan trust. Raya Reynolds had built Deadpool into a phenomenon long before Disney got their hands on him. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was a legend, a role audiences had begged to see again. Together, the two were untouchable, irreverent, chaotic, and most importantly, not bogged down by Marvel's corporate formula. Disney realized it too, and poured marketing dollars into the film as if it were Endgame 2. Teasers, leaks, interviews, it became clear the studio was betting everything on this single movie. But that gamble revealed something darker. The entire future of the MCU, the empire that once prided itself on careful world-building, interconnected storytelling, and decade-long payoffs, was now riding on an R-rated comedy that wasn't even from the MCU's original lineup. Fans loved the idea of Deadpool crashing the Disney machine from the inside, but it was also a glaring signal that Marvel had lost its grip on the bigger picture. Because what happens after Deadpool? What happens if this one hit doesn't fix the brand? There's no Iron Man to carry the next saga, no Captain America to rally fans, no Black Widow to ground the team. Even Spider-Man's future is tangled in Sony's deals. Deadpool might save Marvel from a total collapse, for now, but he's not a foundation to build the next decade on. He's a wild card, a band-aid, the last hope in a franchise that once felt unstoppable. And when your entire empire depends on chaos, that's when you know the empire is already crumbling. Here's the truth. The MCU didn't implode because of one bad show. Ironheart wasn't the disease, it was the symptom. The real collapse came from broken trust. Trust between Marvel and its cast, its crew, and its fans. The actors realized they weren't partners, just marketing props. The fans realized they weren't getting stories, just content. And the crew realized they weren't making art, just overtime. Marvel's greatest power was never the CGI, never the cameos, it was trust. And once that was gone, no reunion, no multiverse twist, no billion-dollar budget could bring it back. The question now isn't whether Marvel can save the MCU, it's whether anyone still wants them to.